several days before. You like the background? Several days before Thanksgiving. Now, when we think of Thanksgiving, of course, we think of the Pilgrims, and we think of the Native Americans, and we think of the Mayflower, and we think of everything. This is probably the most famous Thanksgiving piece of music ever written, or put to music for that matter. It's called Laudate Domino. It's the 116th Psalm in the Catholic Bible. It's the 117th Psalm in the Protestant Bible, just because they want to be different. Exactly the same words. And of course, the original is in Latin, and many, many versions of it, from Vivaldi to Mozart to even Bach, of course, Brahms. I like the one I just played for you, which is Vivaldi's. It's an early one from the early 17th century, and it is the shortest psalm. It's the shortest one. And the most famous one, Psalm of Thanksgiving. Can I have you show off and read the Latin? Okay. Laudate Dominum omnes gentes omnes populi, quoniam confirmata est super nos misericordia eos et veritas Domine manet in aeternum. It says, praise the Lord, all ye nations. Praise him, all ye people, for his loving kindness has been bestowed upon us, and the truth of the Lord endures for eternity. That's the strength that we have. See that? That last part. The truth of the Lord endures for eternity. And that's what these liars are fighting. And that's why they're going to lose. Tonight, we're going to talk about January 6th quite a bit. And because I think there are two major frauds that are beginning to emerge. One of them is the horrendous exaggeration, hysteria, bias, prejudice, meanness, cruelty that emerged from January 6th. And by that, I mean orchestrated by Nancy Pelosi, I'm sure Mitch McConnell, all of it in the effort to complete chapter 5 in their long-term book, How to Destroy Donald J. Trump. Or it could be known as How to Destroy Donald J. Trump. If we don't get him one way, we'll get him another. This was the let's destroy him so he can never run again. Now, I've always had a different view of January 6th, because on the day of January 6th, after I left him at the mall, where he finished by saying, you should all go to the Capitol peacefully and patriotically, I couldn't imagine in my wildest estimation that having said that, he'd somehow be charged with trying to cause an insurrection, which is what maniacs are now trying to do and taking him off the ballot. They've gone to 3 or 4 different secretaries of state and asked that just unilaterally he should be taken off the ballot because they believe that he caused an insurrection. I want you just to sit back for a moment and just imagine the arrogance of the Democrat Party for a moment, in thinking that you could go to a Secretary of State in Colorado just because he's a Democrat and say, take Donald Trump off the ballot because he attempted an insurrection. No matter whether the Secretary of State were a Democrat, a Republican, a liberal, a conservative, only unless he's one of the crooked Democrats, the Hillary Bidens, the Christopher Wrays, the Chris Barrs, the Washington criminals. He's going to say something like, well, what's your proof of it? They'll say, oh, all these articles. No. Proof like, is there a court that has found an insurrection took place? No. Is there a person convicted of insurrection anywhere on January 6th? No. Hmm. How much money did the government spend on that January 6th investigation? Conservatively, $60 million. How many people did they arrest? About 1,000. You mean out of 1,000 people, they didn't charge a single person with insurrection? Well, exactly. I don't know if this is the right language, but exactly then who did Trump insurrect? Himself? In other words, they investigated 1,000 people trying to charge for insurrection. They did not. They certainly never proved insurrection. Um, to take them off the ballot for insurrection? Are you crazy? Well, that's what happened during the Civil War. Okay. All right. Well, did he engage in a civil war? No. You just want me to take him off the ballot because I'm a Democrat, you're a Democrat, and we can cheat, right? Yeah, that's right. So that's essentially what went on. This one got rejected. Thank God. Now, if they had gone to the District of Columbia and done it, it would have been done in a second. In a second. You could get up in front of a jury in the District of Columbia and say, Donald Trump is guilty of murder. We have no proof. We have no evidence, guilty or not guilty. And they would vote guilty. That's what they did with the January 6th defendants. I don't know how many people. I do know that a lot of them were in jail for a year, 2 years. I know a lot of them were in solitary confinement. Can't imagine that. You know how few people I put in solitary confinement in 30 years in law enforcement? My goodness. I mean, even the organized crime and terrorist people. I know. I remember the ones that I did. There were so few. Putting somebody who went to the Capitol protesting an election, and you put them in solitary confinement? What is that? Are you a fascist, a Nazi, a communist? My goodness. Well, we're going to get to that after the break with Cara Castronova, who has covered this from just about the very beginning, and is one of the few people who really knows it. From the ground up. We've all watched it. We get very little information on it. It's very hard. For example, I've tried many, many times. If it wasn't for Cara, I don't know if I know much about it. I mean, I tried to go online and get the names of the people. Usually, you can get the names of somebody that's been in prison. What's the stage of their proceeding? Have they been convicted yet? When is the trial? You can't. You can't. These people are hidden. I don't know. They must be with the. They must be with the Japanese. We never released from the internment of the Second World War. I don't know where they are. And then you read some of these stories of the people who committed suicide, and it just takes you. It just takes your breath away. So we'll get into that in a few minutes. Have we lined up? Have we lined up? Um, have we lined up Mr. Dodo? The clip on Mr. Dodo tonight.
Minute away.
Okay. So tomorrow or the next day, you're going to have a turkey, and the president yesterday pardoned 2 turkeys. Guess he's practicing for pardoning his son. And when are we going to? When does it come time that the 2 people in the white coats come in and take them out like they used to do with insane people in the old days? I mean, is it when he starts to think his wife is Winston Churchill or something? Or he did think his wife was his sister. We do have that. Did think he was in Colombia when he was in Cambodia. Uh, he seemed to he seems to always need help remembering that his uncle was dead for 10 years after he claims he gave him a medal for his service in World War II, because he claims he gave it to him in the White House and the old man was dead for 10 years before Joe was in the White House. Well, that's not all of it. The man never got a medal, at least not in the way we record medals in America. He got a medal in Biden's mind, but not on record. That's like the same record that he was first in his law school class, which was just a mere little slip because he was actually second to last. The day that he the d well, let me tell you this way. One day, my chief of staff walked into my office when I was associate attorney general, said to me, "Our friend Joe," he was a friend then. Said, "Our friend Joe is now last in his class at, law school." I said, "How can that be, Jeff? You graduated from law school, like, 20 years ago." He said, "Well, the guy who's last in his class just got a heart attack and died. He was second to last." And, of course, unfortunately, we had a dark laugh over that. Poor man died. But, that's where Joe was in the class. He was second to last. He actually even lies about that, and his people, they say he was 8th from last. He was actually last in the second to last. Why he had to say he was first? How about just saying, "I can't remember," or, "I didn't study that hard." I'm gonna tell you why. Because he suffers from a very, very serious, illness. He suffers from a serious illness of chip on his shoulder from the day remember, he's been the dumbest kid on the block, in class, into school, in the left back in the 3rd grade, and we got this as a president who has, been responsible for the death of more people than any president at a time than when we let's listen to his attempt to explain what he's doing with these turkeys. Do you have that, Ted? Let's see if we can, make a diagnosis here. All psychiatrists, please watch.
I'm impressed. I hereby pardon Liberty Ann Bell. All right. Congratulations, birds. Congratulations.
That's not it. That's not the part I wanted.
Oh,
It was normal. It's right after that.
we'll
Okay, we'll pull that one. We'll come back. We'll come back for when Joe, when the couple of little brain cells don't quite connect. So it looks like Biden is not going to be indicted for stealing numerous secret documents from the Senate and the White House. Now, I say steal because even though Trump has been indicted for it, he shouldn't have been. And he should be for this reason. He had no right to take the documents. The only person who can take documents out of the White House that are classified is the President of the United States, because the President of the United States has the ability to declassify anytime he wants. And he has the power to declassify for the purpose of making it easier for him even to work at Camp David or at his summer White House. Vice President has no such ability. A senator, on the other hand, is even stricter. A senator cannot take a classified document out of the SCIF. The SCIF is a special room, several of them in each one of the Senate office buildings, that is massively fortified. Secret documents are put there. You're not allowed to bring food in. You're not allowed to bring camera in. The one that we had at the Justice Department was one I was most recently in when I read the Mueller report before it came out. We couldn't even have a jacket on. We had to leave our jacket out, and we got searched on the way in. And if we left, we had to leave for good for the day. We couldn't come back that day. We'd have to come back another day. So you'd have to sit there for 4, 5, 6 hours and finish the whole thing. And you were not allowed to take it out. He has a number of those documents from his Senate days, which you could literally say he stole from the Senate. He then has a large number of documents from the White House. Don't know exactly what law he would break by taking that out of the White House as the vice president. It's not as strict as the Senate, but it's also illegal. He never notified anyone that he had them until, Trump was surged. Then they knew about it before Trump was surged, didn't tell anybody. Then they searched Trump, and then they put it out. So in a way, this is all politically orchestrated. Let's search Trump. Let's say he's mishandling documents. Then you can all find out that the senator and the vice president stole classified documents. But it gets much worse than that because they don't have the guts to really examine it. Trump had no ulterior motive with any of these documents. He wasn't going to give them to anybody. He wasn't going to show them to anybody. If anything, maybe he wanted it for himself, for a biography, or there's a definite ulterior motive with what Biden did. Consider where the documents were put, and that'll explain it to you. Some of the documents were put in Chinatown. Chinatown. Two of the documents were put at collegiate institutes that are massively supported by the Red Chinese. In other words, they give more money to the institute than any other donor. And they have access to everything in the damn place. And the fourth ones were taken home. Now, the fourth ones I've shown you pictures of. Maybe I can dig one up tonight. The fourth ones were kept in his garage. But they weren't just kept in his garage. If you look at the picture of his favorite car that Hunter used to drive all the time, sometimes smoking pot while driving it, the box is open. The guy who passed it every day was a partner of the chief spy of China. And there are documents that were sent to China by Hunter Biden that sound an awful lot like plagiarisms of classified documents. Now, we know the Biden family specializes in plagiarism. So those documents that were taken out were definitely used as one of the deliverables for the $31 million that he got from China. He passed them confidential information. Now, you say, how do I prove that? I can't prove it, but nobody's investigated it. What I just said to you is perfectly plausible, reasonable. All the facts point in that direction. There could be another explanation. There isn't a human being in this country that wouldn't be investigated if those facts were there. And by the way, it's the national interest of the United States hangs in the balance. But nobody has investigated that because we have such a crooked government. That's very sad. On the other hand, we're trying to put Donald Trump in prison for having moved documents from one place in Mar-a-Lago to another place in Mar-a-Lago. And we don't even know if those documents are important. They won't even tell us what the documents are. I'm not sure I can use this word on this station because I have a pretty good idea of what the documents are. They're bullshit compared to documents having to do with China. Trump didn't get paid anything from anybody for him either. This is disgusting what they're doing. This guy not getting prosecuted for taking out classified documents and then putting them all over the place so China can find them very easily. We don't indict him because what? He's a Democrat or president. But we actually haven't indicted him even for worse. How about for taking the money from China? You say, well, the money never got to him. Of course it did. 4 years ago, I showed you money going to him from Ukraine right into his bank account. This is nothing new. So he's described here as a serial docu-hoarder. But nothing's going to happen to him. They're going to write this puppet that they made a special prosecutor for him is going to write, one of those Comey things like she committed 33,000 destructions of emails, but nobody would prosecute her.
We got the full video now of
Okay, let's see the rest of the video as
Joe Biden.
This is also, he's celebrating his 81st birthday, but only 71% of the voters think that he's too old to be president. But he's 81. Well, I guess he's doing all right.
Had to beat some tough odds and competition. They had to work hard to show patience and be willing to travel over 1,000 miles. You could say even this harder than getting a ticket to the Renaissance tour or Britney's tour. She's down in, it's kind of warm in Brazil right now. Look, folks, based on their commitment to being productive members of society as they head to their new home at the University of Minnesota, gonna bring them on up, or do I do it there? That's a big bird, man. I'm impressed. I hereby pardon Liberty and Bell.
Cut that off without a mistake.
Boy, this is our answer to China.
Can we just listen to the first 10 seconds again? So it starts out with him. Liberty and Bell are the two words that he's introducing the two turkeys.
Had to beat some tough odds and competition. They had to work hard to show patience and be willing to travel over 1,000 miles. You could say even this harder than getting a ticket to the Renaissance tour or Britney's tour. She's down in, it's kind of warm in Brazil right now. Look, folks.
And then he goes immediately into a look, folks. That's his default if he needs to buy a second or two.
Well, it was 3 years ago when he did. I pledge allegiance to the flag, to the United States. Oh, you know the thing. Wow. This is pathetic. This is absolutely pathetic. But the Chinese have certainly made out well.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Look, how about getting rid of the airbase 400 miles from China? That was worth it, 31 mil. You got an airbase there, right 400 miles from China. Something goes wrong, man, we can hit them in seconds. Now it's bye-bye, goodbye, no more. Yeah. We don't own it anymore. The Taliban does. Yeah. We gave it up. We didn't even give a reason. The American press didn't even ask him, why the hell did you do that? What kind of crazy president gives up a base 400 miles from your biggest enemy? And particularly a president whose family, let's assume for a moment he didn't get the money. We all know his family got the money. What the hell is he doing in the White House if his family got 31 million from China? I mean, how are we that stupid? What's the answer? What's the answer?
That indoctrinated.
So when we get back, we're going to talk about J6. Oh, I do want to say one thing about Ted's favorite candidate, Mike DeSantis.
That's right, Mike DeSantis.
What's his first name again? I forgot. Governor DeSantis.
The governor.
The governor. Governor DeSantis.
He is the governor.
Governor DeSantis got a big endorsement today. We can't take it away from him. I know we're for Trump, but he got a big endorsement. He got an endorsement from a very, very religious person, Mr. Van der Plaats. Mr. Van der Plaats controls the ecumenical vote in Iowa. And he must be a very, very religious man because it took a $95,000 contribution to Dr. Van der Plaats' charity to get the endorsement. DeSantis got it for only $25,000. It cost DeSantis $91,000. The only one who had the guts not to pay him, I guess he knew he was going out, was Pence told him to go stuff it. But this must be a very highly religious man.
Oh, you mean all the candidates pay?
Yeah.
Oh.
And Van der Plaats is really good at winning the Iowa primary. He endorsed President Santorum, President Huckabee,
who we love.
And who was the other one? President Cruz. Mike DeSantis, whatever the hell your name is, sounds like you wasted the money, babes. because I just want to show you where you are in Iowa. See, that's Trump. Here. He paid nothing. He didn't pay anything to Van der Plaats, who is a very, very holy minister who takes money for endorsements, but very holy. He takes holy money. And then DeSantis is at 18%. That's a lot. That's a lot of votes difference, isn't it, Ted?
That's right.
Yeah. You think the 95,000 will?
Oh man, I mean, look.
And then Haley is at 12, and then the rest, they don't even know who they are.
I was never
in the place we're going. It's DeSantis.
He's now in 5th place. He's under Christie.
Yeah, I thought after you got below 4, they took you off the ballot in New Hampshire. So he may be off. So Trump is at 46, Haley's at 18, Christie's at 11.
That's unbelievable.
Vivek is at 8, and this guy's at 7.
You don't want to spend too much time under Christie, right?
He's looking for a minister he can pay. He's
in New
looking
Hampshire?
for a minister that he can pay in New Hampshire. You know of any very, very religious minister that's looking for about 95 grand?
Wow.
Dr. Van der Plaats, you'd never endorse me, and I wouldn't want it. You could keep it.
I wonder if that money, because some people had called him out at the time for taking the money.
Van der Plaats? Van der Plaats said I charged him. Van der Plaats was very, very arrogant about it. Van der Plaats, when he was hit for the 95,000, said, I should have charged him more. Sounds like Boss Tweed.
There we go. That's right. I was waiting for, and the Trump campaign was smart. They came back and hit hard here. Reuters reported this, and as we just reported tonight, of course, that the DeSantis campaign and Super PAC paid $95,000 to the Family Leader Foundation. That's Mr. Van der Plaats' nonprofit group. So that's interesting.
That's the main thing you have to have if you want to make a profit. You have to have nonprofit groups. Did you know that, Rob?
Yeah, it's right.
I mean, you can get lots of money for it. I think the Clinton Foundation is a nonprofit group like the Van der Plaats group.
Well, I bet you at least
they do a lot of good work.
It's like Democrat for
They do a lot of good work. Like,
do you remember
Clinton's daughter's wedding?
Do you remember Bob Van der Plaats from 2007?
If he ever asked me for $95,000, I'd have reported him to the U.S. attorney. In those days, I want to see what his net worth is.
Who's that? Bob
Dr. Holy Van der Plaats.
Is he a doctor?
I don't know. They all call themselves doctor.
Well,
doesn't Sharpton call himself doctor?
I bet you I wonder how many other candidates gave Mr. Van der Plaats some money here.
Oh, Vivek gave him 25 grand.
Oh, gosh. I guess it's one of those things. So I bet you these guys are, part of the Iowa caucus, right? You gotta go to Mr. Van der Plaats with a pocket full of money.
Yeah, you gotta come up.
It's like straight out of a bad mob movie.
You gotta come up with your money for the minister.
Holy smokes! And that's part of the Iowa.
Van der Plaats' net worth. Maybe I'll be surprised. And he's like St. Francis. He's a mendicant.
Well, maybe he takes that money and gives it to the poor.
A mendicant is one who lives off the land and serves the poor.
We have to make it clear that the money goes to the foundation, the nonprofit. So we don't want to totally misrepresent here what's going on.
We're not going to misrepresent anything.
Yeah.
Well, back in 23, is he Brad? Is his name Brad?
Bob.
Oh, Robert Lee Van der Plaats?
Robert is long for Bob. Yeah, I'm willing to bet that's him.
Not too bad. It's $5 million.
Well, look, that's his selling point. His selling point is that he has endorsed the winner of the last 3 contested GOP caucuses.
Yeah, but I mean, the caucus doesn't really matter.
Huckabee in 2008.
Ted, did anybody tell you get nothing for winning? You don't even get a trophy for winning the Iowa caucus.
What? You get some momentum going into New Hampshire is the idea.
Yeah, but that only works if you get nominated. Momentum is only as good as whether you win the game or not. Like, the Giants always have momentum in the first quarter lately.
Yeah.
And it's over. Which is why I recommended to Sid today that he could just.
I saw that.
No, he should. When New York scores, he should just say all the New York teams lost and move on. Or the Knick game, you only have to report the score in the first quarter because after that the game is over.
They're out of it.
They never get beyond the first quarter. Well, we're going to be back. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be back with Kara. let's put this out of the way. We are Towers Foundation delivers on its promise to do good and never forget the sacrifices America's greatest heroes have made for us. Heroes who risked their lives to keep our communities and our country safe. Heroes like United States Marine Corps Captain and pilot John Jeremy Sachs. Captain Sachs sustained fatal injuries when his military aircraft crashed during training, killing him and 5 other service members. He's remembered by loved ones as courageous, brilliant, and devoted to his career, family, and friends. John is survived by his wife, Amber, who gave birth to their second daughter 3 months after his death. Tunnel to Towers paid the mortgage on the family home for Amber and their 2 daughters. The foundation has helped over 1,000 military and first responder families navigate the worst of times by removing the burden of a mortgage payment. Our nation's heroes and their families need your help now more than ever. Donate $11 a month to Tunnel to Towers at T2T.org. T2T.org. That's T, the number 2T.org. T2T.org. Please donate now. Good evening. This is Rudy Giuliani, and I'm with America's Mayor Live. And I have with me Kara Castronova, who is an investigative reporter. She's a lawyer, and she's also a host on Wise Guys on Newsmax, which is the most interesting show, I think, on Newsmax. But that's my personal opinion.
We love having you on. We do.
So, but Kara is, in addition to everything else, is quite a bit of an expert on January 6th and has followed this from the beginning, just about the beginning, Kara?
From the beginning. I started a group called Citizens Against Political Persecution, and I called it from the beginning. I knew this was all the way to get to President Trump. Everybody was trying to put it under the carpet and pretend it didn't happen, but I knew that they were going to eventually use it to come at Trump, which they are next year. They've charged him. They've indicted him for January 6th. So, it's unfortunate, but I wish more people would have paid attention before this all happened.
Now, I have not been able to see except little snippets on television of the new footage.
Yeah. I've been through a lot of the footage. I've actually seen it because
Have you seen it before they put it out?
It was available in D.C. You had to drive down to D.C., apply to actually sit in a booth and watch it at Congress and for an hour or 2 at a time. So I have seen a lot of it, and there were some leaks that I've seen. What people don't understand is that a lot of it is surveillance video where there's no sound. So there's no audio on the majority of the video. And it's not the body camera footage, which I think is the thing that needs to be released the most because there's audio and it's very close up. So really what the Capitol Police footage is, which is what's being released, is their surveillance from the Capitol and from outside. So it gives you more of a broad, big picture, whereas the body camera footage, which is not being released, gives you the close-up footage.
The body camera footage was taken by the police?
Well, yes. The Capitol Police are not required to wear body cams, nor do they have to answer FOIAs or any other rules for that matter. But the Metropolitan PD are the ones that were wearing the body cameras that day, and there were a lot of them there. So there's so much body camera footage that I feel, and I've seen a lot of it off the record through attorneys and J6 defendants that I can't release. And I've seen a lot of it that's really, really, exculpatory for a lot of prisoners, very bad for the Democrats to get this stuff out. So this is the real stuff that's being hidden that I've been saying has to be released more than the Capitol surveillance, which is great that it's being released. There's a lot of stuff in there and there's a lot to go through. But what's very important is the actual body cam footage.
I mean, the few that I saw appeared to be very similar to the shaman thing where the police were more escorting them than stopping them.
We have a short clip. So
even the famous Sullivan thing, the police are escorting them. And then the most ridiculous thing of all, they don't want them to go into Pelosi's office, but the police are standing right in front of the door.
Right, it's crazy.
And they give up the door. At first you think, well, maybe they're outnumbered. But then when you see the whole thing, you realize they have a bunch of cops right there with them dressed up like the Gestapo.
Right. And a lot of there's
about
proof,
10.
there's pictures that were taken of people with their feet on the desk, that there were news reporters from the Washington Post right there in the room, egging them on, put your feet on the desk, taking pictures, taking photographs conveniently. And that's what I really want to see. I'm looking for that footage of when some guys first came through the window. There was a line of reporters waiting with cameras, with that one officer, Eugene Goodman, who's the Capitol Police officer, happened to be waiting there, happened to have Washington Post and other reporters behind him with cameras, literally waiting for these people to come in the window. It's crazy. So that's some of the footage that I'm sorting and I'm looking through right now.
Well, when you watch the shaman, the cops are laughing. The cops are watching him up there doing whatever shenanigans he was doing, which were harmless, and they're laughing at him.
Right.
And they could have arrested him. If they didn't want him to go into the Capitol, why did they hold the door open for him?
Right. It's crazy.
And how do you prosecute somebody for going into the Capitol illegally when a cop holds the door for you?
Well, speaking of solitary confinement, he spent a lot of time in solitary confinement at the beginning. I've spoken to him. It was really torture for him. So,
Did he break anything?
He didn't break anything.
Did he hit anybody?
No, he didn't hit anybody.
So all he did is that stuff that we see. He ran around like a jackass, right? Ran around. Then he couldn't get in. I remember the scene that I found the most interesting. He tries to go into one side of the Capitol, and the cops try to help him open the door.
Right.
They can't get the door open. They go over to the other side, the other door on the other side. The cop opens the door for him. Like we used to open for women.
Right. And
but now I get hit if I hit a woman hits me like that. But you used to open the door for women, right?
Well, you would think that the January 6th committee from a year or two ago would have actually said, we want to investigate how this happened. Maybe we should ask the Capitol Police why they walked the shaman
but that
around.
Committee was made up with criminals much, much worse than any of these January.
Of course.
I mean, nobody could be at the level of a liar, a man who tried to destroy our republic, than Shifty Schiff.
Right, of course. And now Marjorie Taylor Greene, which I'm very happy, is asking the new Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, to start a new January 6th committee to investigate the old January 6th
committee. Not a bad idea.
It would be a great idea, especially if they want to win in 2024. There's such ripe fruit, I say, hanging from the tree, literally the criminal stuff that went on in that first committee. I actually wrote Marjorie Taylor Greene today, her chief of staff, and said, I have the information you need literally to expose the January 6th committee.
Carrie, they're not human beings, because even if I believed the way they believed, that was a whatever, I would have definitely investigated Ashley Babbitt's murder.
Right.
Because unless you have no concern for human life, there's no justification under any set of circumstances for her murder. A police officer can only use deadly force when he is in fear of his life. If that cop was in fear of his life, he shouldn't have been a cop. I mean, he should have been working on the seventh grade traffic patrol, yeah.
Right. No, so they didn't mention Ashley.
He only had about 20 cops around him to help him.
And they didn't mention Ashley or Roseanne Boylan, who you've
Roseanne
Boylan,
they stomped to death.
Right. She was beaten by a police officer, Lila Morris, who her body cam footage is available and should be released.
But they will not release her body cam footage?
People have leaked it out, but not in full. And there were 2 other deaths that day. So there were many people that died on January 6th that were Trump supporters, but the way you would think that the January 6th committee painted it was police died that day, which didn't happen. So I think the American public would be very shocked if a new January 6th committee came forth and produced evidence and, stuff that's exculpatory for the January 6th prisoners. I think that would be helpful to Trump. I think it would be helpful to so many.
Don't you think Johnson would go? I mean, Johnson seems like so far he seems like a really gutsy guy.
I think that he'll do it. I'm hopeful. I'm going to go down to Congress and ask them, petition. You should come with me.
I will. Now tell me, right now they've released what? The overhead footage?
They're releasing the footage, right, from all of the cameras inside, it looks like, and they're slowly releasing them in batches. So they'll be releasing some of the stuff from the outside, the perimeter of the whole Capitol.
Okay. After that's over, what's left?
Really, that's pretty much what they're releasing, because that's what the Capitol Police and the legislature could actually release. To release the body cam footage is a whole nother story, because you'd have to ask the Metropolitan Police, which I've put in FOIA requests for and I have been denied because it's part of an ongoing
Congress
investigation.
Subpoena it?
They can subpoena it. They could subpoena a lot of things.
And if they refuse to do it, shouldn't they go to jail? Like Trump
it's
people
public
go to
information.
Jail?
When does body camera footage not get released? It's always released. This is the only instance I know when body camera footage is not released.
That's true.
So
and body camera is for public consumption afterwards.
That's the
to
entire
see if
point.
something was done properly. Okay, show us. That's a very good point.
So let's show. I want to give an example to our audience of some of the footage that's now emerging, and it really raises more questions than answers.
To wipe out religions, races, ethnic groups. So it's not. It's not just theoretical. It's real. Well, the Israelis are facing that with Hamas, and what they have now done is completely infiltrated the north of Gaza, have control of it, have control of the hospital.
Left him outside and let him in.
Well, Carrie, explain to me what I just saw.
I mean, it's bizarre. Like you said, that's something that needs to be investigated. Obviously, question
Those are two
police
cops,
officers, right?
They have handcuffs on a guy. You put handcuffs on a guy for a reason. They take him in. They take him. He was outside the Capitol.
And they release him.
They
into
take
the
him
Capitol.
in the Capitol. And they take his handcuffs off so he can go around and create insurrection.
Sorry, awful.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's insanity.
Gee, we don't interfere with the insurrection. Let me take the handcuffs off.
So one of the things people could also look for, and I would, anyone that's looking at the videos, like online sleuths or journalists that are looking, would be look for the 4 cops that were on the January 6th committee who all lied under oath, who lied, when they were in court and providing witness statements for January 6ers, and as witnesses, they lied under oath.
How about the guy who cried? I really.
So the guy that cried is one of the number one people who said certain things happened that did not happen, because I've seen his body cam footage. Officer Fanone, Michael Fanone, wrote a book on what a hero he was and how he almost died that day. I've seen his body camera footage from beginning to end. None of that stuff ever happened. So if only the public could see this, and maybe that could be traced via the surveillance footage, but you'd have to really have a fine tooth comb and really look and know what to look for. So it's more difficult with that type of footage compared to the actual body camera footage, which will show he lied under oath. The crying cops lied under oath.
So we're going to be stuck with this overhead footage, I guess, for a while. But it seems like it's pretty good. I mean, it's pretty damning.
It's helpful. It's definitely helpful in a lot of ways. And there's a lot of people, I'm sure.
Look at that group going through. They looked, they looked a heck of a lot better than that group that got into the Capitol a couple of weeks ago.
Right.
Didn't they even burn something?
This seemed like very peaceful to me. That's the
Look
door.
at this group.
A number of people were let in. Literally, there's video of the cops opening the door and letting them in. So there's a door right there that I've seen video where the cops literally open it and just stand there, kind of like mall security.
So what's happening here?
Are those cops at the beginning?
They're cops, and they're opening the
You're
doors.
You're on playing this video.
Right.
So now that they opened the door
let
for
them
them,
in, and they just.
so why wouldn't those people think I have a perfect right to go in there? The police led me there. Did some of these people get arrested? I imagine
A lot of them are arrested. One of them is being represented actually by Alan Dershowitz right now, who of course is innocent. He walked in this door. His name is Brady Knowlton, and Alan is arguing that this door they were let in. That's all he did. He literally walked in an open door.
Wait a second. Just stop right there. He's arguing they were let in. They were let in.
Of course. but in
door.
Washington, D.C., it doesn't matter with the jury. Literally, you could convince those people of anything.
I'm going to watch that. There's actually, those are 2 police officers.
Open the door.
There's another police officer, another one. There are 3. There are
a number of them.
And now they're guiding them, actually.
They're holding the door open for them.
I want to tell you another thing. One of the guys that came in that way, his name is Ethan Nordine, a Proud Boy, came in the open door, got 17-year sentence.
What else? Did he do anything else?
No. That's what he did that day. He walked in, he walked out. He was looking for his friends.
So there's a man in jail for 17 years?
17 years
for doing that?
Sentenced by Judge Kelly, who's a very, very unfair judge. Yes, for walking in this entrance.
Is there such a thing as a fair judge in the
No, there's not. There's absolutely not.
So.
They're all, in my opinion, and
Got to tell you, I got one
research.
hell of a judge. Woo!
Yeah, I feel
bad for me.
Well, I'm going to try to help you expose that judge. I like to expose judges.
Yeah, man, haven't she? Didn't she keep sentencing people to more than the prosecutors asked?
She's really, really
bloodthirsty,
out for blood.
right?
Yep,
yeah.
That's the perfect way to put it.
So I suppose you've been watching hours of this footage since it's been released.
I've seen that, and I've picked and combed through it. Yes,
in person or not in person.
Not in person, and I've also
traveled to Washington.
And I saw the opposite, the camera on the other wall that's looking at the door that they came in, which again was opened by police who stand there and look very not. They don't look
you
like
mean
they're
on the other
threatened
side? On the other side
the
of the
camera
door?
that's facing the door that they all just came in. I've seen that as well, which is the same, more of the same stuff, just police letting people in, an open door. and people just
Who the
moseying on
heck would
in
have thought that?
with their
I mean,
cameras, like, wow, look.
Wouldn't
You know?
the cops have known that cameras were watching them at the time? Why would they?
Yeah, but they didn't.
uncuff
You know, maybe they
Not
didn't.
procedural.
Maybe they didn't expect the exaggeration that was placed on it.
That's true.
You know,
Right.
they went hysterical on this.
Right. I think they were set up to a certain extent. I think there were some cops in there that got set up.
Yeah.
The cops themselves,
Yeah.
Yes.
the higher tier of cops, maybe not, but the ones kind of like the ground
I
troops.
mean, those cops were
they had
just
no
told to
idea.
let them go through.
Yeah, they're just following orders.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, they would- they-
Marching orders.
Right.
They wouldn't have known they were. I mean, there obviously was some that set it up, but then there were others who just were following their normal orders.
Right.
Well, we're going to take a short break, and we will be right back.
Our device is something that you can plug into your television, and now you can use your television as a social television type experience. So in the Portal universe, you can watch your favorite content creators' videos, live streams, music. We also have TV subscriptions as well.
TV
so
subscriptions.
you can also
regular channels, all the sports.
Right, you can actually cut your cable from your cable subscription and get QUX TV on our QX TV boxes, and you can pay half the price that you're currently paying for your cable television subscription, and you can get all the best premium TV channels and more. I mean, it's really, there's so much on there, Rudy. I mean, you've seen it.
No, I've seen it and I use it, and it's I mean, it's just exactly the same except for half the price. Plus, nobody is finding out what I'm watching, and that's not being reported to anybody.
Right, so you have absolute privacy using this device, which you don't have on other devices out there currently on the market.
This is absolutely great. QUX.TV is how you can find out about it. QUX.TV.
Use promo code RUDY to receive $30 off.
This is Rudy Giuliani back with America's Mayor Live with Cara Castronova, and we've been discussing January 6th, which I think, as I predicted a while back, but now I will predict it with even more certitude. This is going to be another Japanese internment scandal for the United States where due process was set aside, the Constitution was burned.
Of course.
And really at the core of it are the judges of the District of Columbia.
Right. It's only
It's like they're a cabal. The thing that struck me really about them more than anything else is how they sentence for these January 6th people beyond the guidelines of prosecutors who are bloodthirsty.
Well, they're adding terrorism enhancements a lot of the time, which is crazy because obviously nobody on January 6th was a terrorist. So when they add these terrorist enhancements like they did with the Proud Boys and like they're doing with a number of other people, that adds on a lot of years.
Now, they let, all throughout America, they let all the Antifa and Black Lives Matter people go for the 2020 riots that resulted in 27 deaths at least, billions of dollars in damage, thousands of people in the hospital,
Right.
1,000 cops in the hospital.
No, I've seen journalists that have put together information. One of them is a friend of mine, Trennis Evans, who have made a chart of actual Black Lives Matter, Antifa crimes during that period of time, and then January 6th, and lined them up and how much more time people are getting for January 6th than they were for the Antifa and Black Lives Matter riots. So it's completely political persecution. And the judges only get away, the DJ only gets away with what the judges let them. And the judges have been in complete lockstep, and that includes all Trump-appointed judges like Judge Timothy Kelly, who is, in my opinion, a very bad, unfair judge, and the judge that you have, they're all in lockstep. So I have observed so many of these cases. I've watched them in person, and there's so much evidence that I have and that I've put together that the judges are corresponding illegally with the Department of Justice, possibly even the Biden administration and the original January 6th committee in ways that they shouldn't be. That right now in the House has the subpoena power. They should subpoena those communications and those emails. And that will show that there was collusion is a nice way of putting it. And I think that will be very helpful for Donald Trump, for Rudy Giuliani, for everybody else that was charged with anything having to do with January 6th, that these judges are colluding.
I can't imagine those people that were held in solitary confinement for months and months and months. And they either did nothing or they did something like we just saw,
Right.
which is
It's so sad, and they feel forgotten. I want to tell you crazy
nothing.
a story. A guy just got released because they got the wrong guy. He was in jail for 3 months in DC Gitmo. He just got put down there 3 months ago. He just got released. They're like, we're so sorry, we got the wrong guy. He literally wasn't there on January 6th. Like, they're getting away with this. The news isn't even reporting on it. He should have a lawsuit.
When they let murderers go free like that, it's on the front page.
But this guy wasn't even there. They actually got the wrong, they misidentified a photograph and threw the wrong guy in jail for 3 months. And then they're like, oops, sorry, it wasn't you. Let him go. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. It's completely lawless and there's no oversight. None whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to go down as one of the worst incidents in American history. I hope it does, because then it'll prevent it happening again.
Right, it needs to.
I hope it gets studied completely, it gets revealed completely, and the judges who participated in this are removed from the bench because they don't belong being judges. They're political hacks, nut jobs, hysterics, who buy the craziest arguments.
Right, it's crazy
without analysis. I mean, when you begin judging from your political biases, it's time to quit.
Right, and that's all of them down the line.
Yeah.
So
it's time to quit.
I have no idea what's going on with those judges. I always thought judges were, as fair, balanced, wise people. I've seen the opposite.
And we know that they are, actually, but yet they capitulate to this nonsense.
That's
why is what I want.
It's so important. I'm going to stress this one more time, that the House of Representatives, the GOP, the Judiciary Committee, they do an investigation into the January 6th committee from last year, and also the judges and the Department of Justice in the way that they're prosecuting the January 6th defendants. It's so important when they have the subpoena power.
Well, I can't remember the exact date, but it would have been January 14th, 15th. I packaged up a lot of the evidence that I had acquired and sent it to them, sent it to the D.C. prosecutor, expecting that there'd be an investigation of Ashley Babbitt's murder, because I saw it the day that it happened. And I called in several New York City former homicide detectives and asked them to look at it. And I said, what do you have here? He said, well, you got a murder one investigation here. That cop had first of all, the woman doesn't have a gun. She is either being thrown over or jumps over a transom, which means she's going to fall on her face. He could have had handcuffs on her before she even could say boo. Then when you look at it again and you realize on his side of the fence were about 8 cops that he could have called to help him instead of murdering her. On her side, there were another 8 cops, including about 8 in riot gear, dressed up like something out of the Third Reich. And they could have stopped her from going over.
Right. They let her pass.
And finally, if they were so worried about her going over, why the hell did the cops give up the post in the first place and let them knock the door down? What's the difference if you're knocking the door down or you're going over the top? The police were standing there preventing them from coming in the door. The police backed off, let them come in the door, and at the same time she was going over the top. You could almost say the police allowed the activity.
I would agree with that for sure.
And they kill a woman, an innocent woman, no record, military
veteran,
record, and no evidence in the footage that you see of her causing any trouble. She didn't burn anything. She didn't break anything. We're not even sure she came in illegally. She could have come in. She could have come in through the window that Sullivan broke, that he climbed through, or she could have come in with some of the others through the door that the cops held open, in which case she wouldn't even be a trespasser. And the man is murdered, the woman is murdered, and not only that, they won't answer any questions about it. It's as if you can't ask about the death of a human being.
Or 4 human beings, I'd say, 4 Trump supporters.
Well, then, we didn't even know about that then. I mean, that came out later.
Well, they knew about it. I want to tell you that. They knew. They had footage from a documentarian named Nick Cuesta that they aired at the first January 6th committee, who had all of the footage of Roseanne Boylan's death and Ashley Babbitt's death. So that footage was presented but cut and manipulated to their narrative at the first committee hearing, but they had all of that evidence the whole time.
And why wasn't anybody curious as to why they put out the false narrative that 4 cops were murdered that day?
It's crazy.
There are people who still repeat that.
I know a lot of people still repeat that because people always remember the first thing they heard, and then it becomes their truth, and you can't convince them otherwise.
And then each one of them fell away. Well, it wasn't 4, it was 3. Then it was 2. Then it was 1. Then they had that magnificent funeral. God bless him that he had a magnificent funeral. But the guy died of a heart attack a day later. He didn't die of anything that happened to him.
Right.
According to their coroner, he died of a heart attack, natural causes, a day later. And cops generally don't get heart attacks from riots. If they did, I mean, half the New York City Police Department would have heart attacks.
That's very true.
That's not one of the things you get from a cops generally don't get scared of riots. If they do, they shouldn't be cops. And they don't pull triggers unnecessarily like that creep did who took her life. I mean, that guy got away with murder.
He did. And he also raised a lot of money on GoFundMe, which a lot of Democrat Congress people actually donated to as well for his fundraiser.
And he had a bad record.
I think a couple $100,000. And he did have a bad record. He left his gun in the bathroom, a whole number of other things. He's not the best cop, put it that way.
Well, he should. My goodness, if it isn't some degree of murder, there is no such thing as murder. Then there are no standards. I mean, he was not in fear of his life. He shouldn't have even been in fear. These people hadn't hurt anybody. They negotiated with the cops to break the door down, and the cops agreed. You can have the door. Go ahead. And then he comes out of nowhere with his gun. And Sullivan knows exactly where to put the camera, but not get his face too clearly on the camera.
Right.
Gee, I wonder how that happened. Well, Ted, do you have any questions for our expert?
So, Kara, what's the next step here? Of course, people are sifting through hundreds, thousands of hours of footage. Much of it, just
Right.
not going to be super helpful. But everything we're hearing now, I think it's safe to say this group, the four of us here, we've known this from the start, right? I mean, none of this is surprising to us, right?
Right.
Some of the footage backs up what we've already known.
Right.
So what's the next step? Because honestly, I'm not super thrilled when I hear people today, 2.5 years later, say, oh, wow, look, this was a setup. I mean, we've known this the entire time. So what's the next step for those of us that want justice? The obvious answer, getting these people, these innocent Americans out of the gulag.
Right.
Number one.
That's number one, clearly.
Right. That's
But as
definitely
far as
number
combating
one.
this in the future,
Vote for
what
Trump.
can we do?
A
Knowing that
January
getting these people
6th
out of
committee
trouble.
needs a new, like I said, it's the most important thing, what I wanted from the beginning, but Speaker McCarthy didn't want to do it. I went down to Congress, I knocked on doors, I petitioned, I asked them to do a January 6th committee on the former committee, and they all told me the same thing. McCarthy doesn't want to do it.
McCarthy made
So now
some-
with Johnson, I think that it's a possibility, and I think that's what we need to fight for, an investigation.
Before everybody breaks their heart over McCarthy, I mean, McCarthy was pretty vicious about January 6th, the day that it happened. Now, I remember every single one of them it was. And I also remember the Fox people going hysterical because having seen the Sullivan tape, I knew there was another side to this right away. Right away, I didn't know how big the other side was.
Right.
But I knew that Antifa was in there. I had people identify certain Antifa people to me. And then I had the text that went back and forth between the Sullivans in which Sullivan was inviting Antifa people there.
Right.
And so I knew that there was a certain element of manipulation to this.
There were many elements.
And unfortunately, for whatever he said or didn't say, I told him that. So he had, from the very beginning, President Trump had the impression there's a second side to this too. It's not just exactly what you're
think to
saying.
secure Trump in 2024, the American public needs to see the truth. They need to see how much they were lied to. They need to see the election interference that happens on multiple elections. The last one in 2020 and the one in 2022, where with the governor, when the governors ran, there was a lot of influential stuff having to do with the January 6th committee. They were influencing the American public. They were using tax dollars to lie to the public. And I think that needs to be exposed. I think that if a lot of truths come out about January 6th, I've always said this, then Democrats are going to say, wait a second, we didn't know that. We were lied to. Maybe we shouldn't trust our Democrat politicians. And it'll help get these guys out of jail. And it'll hopefully put Trump back as president of the United States.
Yeah.
And keep him out of jail. That's the most important thing.
Right. Yeah, for the rest of his life. That's what they want to. How about me too? They want to put me away.
You're going to be okay because you're Rudy
I'm gonna be
Giuliani,
okay,
and I'll
yeah.
make sure of it.
I don't know. I got along pretty well with the prisoners. You know, they applauded me. They gave me a standing ovation. They did.
They did.
In Atlanta, not even in New York. I attribute that to the fact that we have New York prisoners like all over the country. We got our sample of New York prisoners all over. Like at games. Any game I go to, I find Yankee fans. Same thing is true of jails. Any jail I go to, I find New Yorkers.
That's funny.
But I was surprised. They may have forgotten I was a prosecutor, you know? I didn't used to get reported like that when I was a prosecutor or mayor.
Well, you're not going to go to jail is the good part because
Well, I
you're
have some
innocent
friends
and the
there.
truth wins in the end and God
I'll make
wins in
some
the
friends
end.
if I have to. I mean, I can, you know, as long as you let me write. Well, we're going to be back tomorrow night for our pre-Thanksgiving show, which is going to be a special. We're going to have a pre-Thanksgiving special. Some very, very interesting footage for you tomorrow night about Thanksgiving, which is probably our unique holiday, right? It's our American holiday. And despite what the communists in government today and in the universities say, we're going to celebrate it. Screw them. Happy Thanksgiving.